I read Hannah Brown's book, God Bless the Mess, so that you didn't have to. Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. We are here today for Zachary's book club. But before we get into today's video, make sure you guys are subscribed to my channel and ring the bell so you never miss out on any future videos. I have a feeling we're gonna be back here reviewing more Bachelor books, but today on the agenda is Hannah Brown's book, God Bless the Mess. So I read the whole book, start to finish. It took me about 5 days to read the whole book. It was like 200, almost 300 pages, and I really enjoyed the book. I thought it was amazing, and I just found it so interesting, and I'm just gonna tell you guys everything you need to know about the book from start to finish, and I hope that saved you guys a lot of time. So with that being said, will you guys accept this rose? By accepting this rose, that means you will be on this journey with me in this YouTube video while we talk about Hannah Brown's book. So if you're still here, that means you accepted it, and let's kind of get into the nitty gritty. God bless this mess. Book was it's just so good. Like literally, let's start from the beginning. So Hannah Brown, she grew up in Alabama, a small town with her parents, her brother Patrick. She had a really traumatic upbringing. To be honest, I almost feel like she only talked about like the negative parts of her childhood. Things definitely made more sense towards the end of the book, but I felt like the majority of the book, especially the beginning, was just kind of highlighting negative parts of her childhood and her life. And I don't really know if what that was about. I don't know if she was just trying to teach us a bunch of lessons by sharing her hardships, or what it was, or if books are usually like this. I've only read so many celebrity memoir books, but I just felt like the overall spirit of this book was very negative. I think it's just because she went through so many things. So she was such an insecure kid. She had so much trouble fitting in school. A very tragic incident happened with her family when her cousin Trent and Robin were murdered, and as well as their aunt Lily. So basically what happened is some worker who worked in the house, who was already out of jail, so there was like this program where like they give people second chances, and Aunt Lily had hired this guy to help fix up something like a pool house or something. It doesn't really matter. And that guy who used to work in the house knew exactly where Aunt Lily, Hannah's aunt's wallet was. So one day he went to steal money from the wallet, and Aunt Lily saw the guy taking money from the wallet, and he got all freaked out. So he ended up stabbing Aunt Lily, and then he stabbed Robin and Trent so that he thought he can get away with it because the guy didn't want to go back to jail again since he used to be in jail. And she didn't know what was going on. All she knew was that her dad missed her dance recital, and she was so upset about that. It happened when she was 6 years old, and Hannah was just like a very intuitive person. Her parents kind of told her, but they didn't really discuss it. And it was one of those things where it was like a tragic incident that was like buried under the rug. But that story was just so tragic for her, and it really shaped her to who she is today. And like now she goes to therapy for it. She was afraid to meet strangers. She was afraid to fall asleep at night. Hannah found herself Googling studies about this case of like her family getting murdered because her parents didn't want to tell her anything because they wanted to protect her. She found herself Googling things like as she got older, and it really caused like a divide between her and her parents, especially her dad, because he went through so much, and her parents fought so much during her childhood. I am so surprised they are not divorced. Like no shade, but like the way she described their parents' relationship, like I'm surprised they're not divorced because it just seemed like there was so much fighting and there was just so much toxicity in her household. I just can't even believe that they're still married, but I guess they are still married today because y'all told me they were, and I'm really happy for that. She was always just trying to make her mom happy, and she was always just trying to please people around her, but she always like knew she had bigger plans for herself in life, and that's kind of what got her into pageantry when she started doing pageants, because it kind of just fell on her lap. Pageantry was a way to do something that she wanted to do and be competitive, and like it was a way for her and her mom to bond, and she had a lot of trouble in the pageant world because this caused her eating disorder and caused more insecurities about her dimples and about how she looked at things. So Hannah had like a lot of issues dating when she was younger. She says that the girls were jealous of her at school because a few of the guys really liked her, and she was like one of the, biggest catches at school. She talks a lot about her relationship with her ex Brady and another ex Tucker, and then she also talks about her college boyfriend Austin. Basically a lot of her boyfriends just never treated her right. Like, some of them used her faith against her, and like because like Jesus still loves me, and like all of her horrible relationships when she was younger definitely led her to going on The Bachelor. How she ended up on The Bachelor is that she was done with pageantry. She just finished Miss USA, and she didn't really place high. She was feeling really down about herself, and she was trying to figure out her next steps in life. She was out to lunch with a couple of her friends, and they were like, you should just go on The Bachelor. She thought it was funny. She laughed. She was like, why not? Could be a chance to find love. And a few hours later, a Los Angeles number randomly called her and was like, we want you to apply for the next season of The Bachelor. And she thought it was such a coincidence. She didn't know, but somebody nominated her behind her back. She later found out that the person who nominated her was a videographer she used for her Miss USA pageantry, because that was like a full-time job being in like Miss America pageants and stuff. And, like, she was doing pageants for so many years, and she always wanted to be Little Miss Perfect. It's only later in the book where she realizes that all she ever had to be was Hannah. But she was driving to Atlanta for the first audition, and they loved her. She started doing her research on The Bachelor because she never really saw the show before, and she was watching Becca's season, and the only person she would go on the show for was Colton. She said that Colton was perfect for her on paper because he was a virgin, he was all about faith, Jesus, blonde hair, muscular, and that's why she ended up getting on the show, because she wasn't like thirsty to get on. Like, she was so specific. She was like, I'll only go on if it was Colton. Because so many people mess up in their Bachelor auditions by being so thirsty and so desperate, and like desperation shows. Desperation shows from a mile away, and like Hannah was just going in there like not really caring about the show. They ended up flying her out to LA for the final round of auditions. They loved her again. They loved how open she was. Hannah was so open with producers because she went through so much in her childhood with her parents, her cousins murdering, just like her confidence, her relationship with boys. She's had so many toxic ex-boyfriends. So like she was just so open, and she was talking to the producers like they were her therapist. That's really what landed her on the show, and they didn't tell her it was Colton, but they told her she would be super happy, so she agreed to do the show. She had no idea the drama between her and Kaylin was going to be what it was. It was way more than what it actually was. She was really into Colton, but she noticed that Colton was like holding back with her, and that he didn't really enjoy kissing her. She didn't know it was off. She was so in love with the idea of like being with Colton because he was so perfect on paper. And like Hannah really believes in God and Jesus, so she really believed that God and Jesus and faith put her on the show so she can fall in love with Colton. So she was so wrapped up in the idea of that. So she ended up getting sent home, and like she was so upset, and she just like found her voice, and she was just like, I'm not gonna let these men. And you guys saw her story on The Bachelor. She really like found her womanhood. And then it was literally like in the limo when they asked her to be the Bachelorette, and like she thought it was such a slap in the face. Just got her heart broken, and they're already like asking her to be the Bachelorette, and she also didn't understand why they asked her because she didn't even make the top 4. She would be the first Bachelorette in all time who didn't make it to the top 4. So that was like a milestone moment. So she ended up becoming the Bachelorette and going into the Bachelorette, just like really looking for love, and she thought that it was like faith and like God, it was like supposed to be there. She does not mention anyone in the book other than her top 4. Tyler C, Luke, Jed, and Peter. Those are the only 4 guys she talks about from her season of The Bachelorette, and like each of them play out separately. So in regards to Luke P just reminded her of like all her ex-boyfriends who like used her faith and like weaponized it against her, and that's why she ended up telling Luke P off, because she finally saw it for herself. And Luke P like really pressured her into being like, if you had sex with anyone else, then I cannot be with you. And that is why Hannah admitted that she had sex with Peter in the windmill, because that was originally going to be Peter and Hannah's secret, but she knew that's what she had to say to Luke P to get him to get out of there and to also stand up for herself. So that's why she revealed she had sex with Peter, to get rid of Luke P. He had to get out of there. And in regards to Peter, I mean, she really loved Peter so much. She didn't want to send him home. Like, she had such strong feelings for Peter, Tyler, and Jed. The reason she ended up choosing Jed is because she was so comfortable with Jed and she felt so safe with Jed. And like, Jed just reminded her of home because he lived in Nashville, and he was so honest with her, she felt, because he told her that he only went on the show for her music, but then she caught him by surprise. So she just like really got wrapped up in Jed, and she just felt like it was the safe choice, because a life with Tyler in New York City, he was a model, and then a life with Peter, he was a pilot in California. Hannah thought that she was going to be moving back to Alabama and like living her country life and getting married and engaged, because that's what you were taught to do in Alabama, is to get married and have kids by the time you were like 23. That Jed was the safest decision, so that's why she chose him. Okay, so you saw Hannah pick Jed. Hannah found out like a month in that People magazine was going to do this like story on Jed's ex-girlfriend, and like she got an alert, and Hannah like asked Jed about it, and he like told Hannah that like they only spoke for a week and then they spoke for a month. Basically, he was just like kind of lying around and like lying about it. And then Hannah found out from the girl who did a full-blown interview with People magazine. Like, obviously this girl, Haley Stevens, I think she wanted to expose Jed and like do what was right by Hannah, but she also like wanted the clout and the attention by like putting that out there. I mean, she also is a musician just like Jed, so clearly they both wanted to use The Bachelor as an opportunity to promote their music careers. So Hannah like basically found that out, that Jed literally saw this girl the night before he left for filming The Bachelorette, and that's ultimately what led to Hannah and Jed's breakup. Hannah put Jed and like Luke and like Brady and like all of these guys in like a category of like all the guys that like just tried to gaslight her, and she just called Jed a gaslighter. So she ended up breaking up with Jed. You saw it happen play out on After the Final Rose. She was so done with him. She was so ready to stand up for herself and just be like, I'm done with Jed, moving on. And that is why she started to talk to Tyler again, and she was also starting to talk to Peter again. It's not that simple. I feel like we just like, oh, you're engaged to Jed now, your feelings went away. No, her feelings feelings for Peter and Tyler did not go away. I mean, she was in love with both of them too, and it's like a weird process going on The Bachelorette and falling in love with multiple people at once. But after reading Hannah's book, God bless the mess, I understand why she like didn't get over Peter and Tyler right away, and like she wishes she had more time to explore those relationships. She kind of like had to focus on dating Tyler first before Peter, because Peter was going on to be the Bachelor. And she started talking to Tyler. They were texting. They both agreed that they would like that Hannah would ask him out on a date after the final rose, since Hannah was the one that dumped Tyler while he had a ring. He was about to propose, so Hannah had to make it up to Tyler. And they were talking, and they spent the night together after the final rose. They didn't have sex. They did sleep together and like make out and stuff. But Tyler was the one that stopped it because Tyler said that he wanted to take it slow. Hannah was like, okay. So then Tyler left the next day to go to New York. Hannah finds Tyler spotted with Gigi Hadid. Paparazzi photos. Gigi Hadid. And Hannah was just like, I never expected to be in a love triangle with Gigi Hadid. Tyler told Hannah that like he wanted to date other girls because he didn't know if he could fully commit to her after everything that happened. And like, it's kind of a valid reason. Hannah just dated 30 guys and like dumped Tyler on national TV. Yes, she tried to make it right by asking him out, but still, like, Tyler wanted to date other girls. So I was siding with Tyler in this situation. Hannah just felt like a second choice, kind of like was on the back burner. And Tyler and Hannah ended up hanging up on each other and like not being friends. Like they didn't talk for 6 more months because like it just like got frustrated between them, and Hannah felt like Tyler wasn't being honest because she had to do all the press for The Bachelor and like Dancing with the Stars. Hannah joins Dancing with the Stars, and she is already so fed up with trusting men, and she's so upset after like her whole season and how everything ended with Jed and then Tyler and then Peter becomes the Bachelor, that she's just like in the worst mood ever, and she's like using Dancing with the Stars as a distraction for herself to not think about all the guys who broke her heart. And her partner Elon, or Alan, I'm so bad at saying his name, so I apologize, but we're just gonna call him Elon because I think that's how you say it. Elon was just like not a good partner for her. They fought all the time, and like it was never shown on TV. Like they both had the same goal, which was like winning the show, but like Elon was just like not a good friend to Hannah. And like anytime she tried to vent about all the guys and like her season and all the drama that was happening in the press, because Hannah was just like in the press nonstop, like Elon was just not there, and he did not care up until the cameras showed up, and then he did care. So they were like always fighting throughout the season. However, like they still were able to win Dancing with the Stars because Hannah grew so much throughout the competition, and they were like a power duo, and like they honestly had really good chemistry while they were dancing on stage. Their relationship was so volatile throughout the entire experience. I wonder what Elon thinks about this book now that it's out and we all know he was kind of a So while she's filming Dancing with the Stars, The Bachelor keeps telling Hannah, they told her twice, that she has to go on The Bachelor and film scenes for Peter's season. And like she's still under contract with ABC, so she has to go. So she showed up night 1 to see Peter, and like it brought back emotions, and she was already done with Tyler at this point. And then they made her come back again to film, like to host a group date scene. Hannah and Peter were able to talk off camera, and Peter told Hannah that he would leave The Bachelor for her if she was like fully committed. Hannah was like, listen, I am doing Dancing with the Stars right now. I will not be in a relationship. So if this doesn't work out for you on The Bachelor, this is what Hannah told Peter. If it doesn't work out for you on The Bachelor, I will still be here in a few months. But good luck, finish your journey. And that's why Peter should have never been The Bachelor, because he was not emotionally over Hannah either. Hannah and Peter still had things to settle out. So when you saw Peter's story play out on The Bachelor and like how messy it was with Hannah Ann and Maddie, it's because Hannah Brown was in the back of his mind the entire time. And it really shows. Like, it really like makes Peter, he wasn't ready to be The Bachelor. He was not ready to be engaged. After Peter's season ends, Peter and Hannah Brown were able to have a conversation. Peter is no longer with Hannah Ann, able to vent to Hannah Brown about it, because Hannah Brown is also sworn to secrecy by The Bachelor. So you all kind of heard what happened with Peter through my TikToks and through the press or anything. I really highly encourage you guys to look at my TikToks at Zachary Reality so you know more about stuff that I maybe forgot to mention in this YouTube video. 10 facts from Reddit that will clear up the Hannah, Peter, Hannah, Tyler, Maddie, Kelly timeline. So the first thing to note is that Peter and Hannah Brown slept together 3 weeks after Hannah Ann and Peter ended their engagement. Peter and Kelly exchanged numbers and started talking 1 to 2 weeks before he slept with Hannah Brown. He officially got back together with Maddie a week and a half after sleeping with Hannah Brown. Also talking to Maddie and Kelly at the same time, probably putting Kelly on the back burner since it didn't work out with Maddie. Hannah claims that after sleeping with Peter, there wasn't any chemistry, and it was also the same day she found out about Jed's new girlfriend. Peter and Hannah Brown slept together 3 weeks before Hannah joined Tyler in Florida with the quarantine crew. Peter and Tyler Cameron also hung out and went to a football game the day after Tyler was spotted with Hannah for the first time after the Gigi rumors. Peter conveniently challenged Tyler to a TikTok dance-off the same day Hannah Brown left for Florida. Barb apparently made Hannah Brown breakfast. But obviously her and Peter did not end up working out anyway. Peter ended up dating Kelly, and like that was what was meant to be. You guys are never going to believe this. Hannah Brown admits that she hooked up with Peter Weber while his season was airing. Hannah is revealing all the Bachelor tea in her new book, God Bless the Mess. She was the Bachelorette, Peter was her third choice, and since she broke up with Jed, she was single by the time Peter was the Bachelor. Bachelor. She showed up on Peter's season night 1 as a joke and then ended up leaving, but when she showed up, it brought up all these feelings. Peter told her that he would leave the season right then and there if she could promise that they would be together. She told Peter that she would love to go on a date with him, but couldn't promise that they could be official. So then Peter goes through with his season, falls in love, and gets engaged to Hannah Ann. There was a brief moment when Peter broke up with Hannah and before he got back together with Maddie, where Peter hooked up with Hannah Brown. And it happened at Dylan and Hannah G's engagement party. I cannot make this ish up. And then Peter obviously ended up getting back with Maddie, so Peter and Hannah Brown never ended up being a thing. But this is how Hannah Brown describes her time at the quarantine crew as read in her book, God Bless the Mess. After the final rose, Hannah and Tyler spent a night together before he left LA. The next day, she was surprised to see paparazzi pictures of Tyler and Gigi. Hannah thought they were pursuing a relationship again. Tyler said, well, you just broke up with me on national TV, so they kind of fizzled out and didn't talk for 6 months. 6 months later, Tyler's mom unfortunately was in the hospital about to pass away and Hannah reached out. Tyler said that his mom would have wanted Hannah to be there, so he flew her to Florida. She thought she was staying a couple days, quarantine hit, she ended up quarantining with the quarantine crew for over 20 days. Hannah and Tyler slept in the same bed for 20 days, but they never had sex, they only cuddled 1 or 2 times. She was always confused about their relationship because one day they would have these romantic conversations and then the next day he would completely ignore her. Matt and Hannah got really close and Matt said Tyler was just dealing with the grief of losing his mom. But Hannah ultimately felt like she was annoying Tyler and that he only needed her when it was convenient. The book kind of came full circle in that Hannah really did talk a lot about her relationships, not meant to be for any of these people. Hannah is now in a relationship with a guy named Adam who she met in LA. Hannah ended up moving back to LA after the quarantine. She stayed home in Alabama for a little bit. The book was just really good. I enjoyed reading it. I think the most surprising thing in the book was learning about the girl who like tried to throw Jed under the bus and like learning about Hannah Brown's breakup. Totally forgot what happened on The Bachelorette. I definitely was like watching after the final rose like YouTube videos this past weekend to get more tea because I was just like so shook by like everything in this story. Something else to note out about this is that Hannah loves the water. It's like always been a safe space for her. And living in Alabama, she's never lived close to the beach, and that's kind of one of the reasons why she fell in love with LA. And one day when she was quarantined in Alabama, like after she left the quarantine crew in Florida, but when she went on walks in Alabama during her house, she would always go to the right. And every time she went to the right, there was always this annoying dog that was like barking at her, like one of her neighbor's dogs. And one day she randomly decided to go to the left. And when she went to the left, she discovered that there was like this lake behind her house that she never knew about her entire life. She literally discovered this lake at 25 years old. Considering how much the water means to her and how much the water is like her safe place, if she just went to the left and like listened to the dog that was barking at her. Maybe this dog was trying to tell her something. The water and like this path was there all along. So like the whole book is really about like self-discovery for Hannah, and it's really about like how she's like learned valuable lessons in her life, learning to like put herself first, like always trust Jesus and trust God, and her faith is like so important to not let guys walk all over her. It's not like anyone walk all over her own story, to stand up for who she is. I would give this book a 9 out of 10. It is so good. I did feel like it was very negative at some parts, like in the beginning, but like she really did go through a traumatic childhood. Her tragedies in life and less about like her positives, but then like towards the end of the book, the last couple chapters, everything just kind of made sense. I definitely plan on reading more Bachelor books. I'm gonna read this book from Game of Roses. It's called How to Win the Bachelor. I'm gonna read this next. And I know like a lot of you guys are Bachelor fans, but I'm still trying to get into this book, All Life Isn't All Diamonds and Rose. I'm gonna be reading this too eventually, and I'm gonna be ordering Matt James's book when that comes out. I'm just gonna become like a Bachelor book reviewer. Love you guys for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel. Ring the bell so you never miss out anytime I post. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on TikTok. Comment down below if you guys have any more questions on Hannah Brown's book, and then I will answer them in the comment. And like, let's just start the chatter. Like, let's just start talking. Okay, guys, have a great week. Nice chatting with you guys today, and I will catch you guys next time. Bye.